Morning, another day, another real world test. Today we're doing on the Google Pixel 9 Pro Fold, but we're doing this a bit later than normal, so I have all the updates, all the hype has died down, and as per the usual, we will head out and test out this phone all while we explore. But first things first. Coffee, check. And once again, welcome to Coffee Check. I opened this coffee shop about 5 months ago now, and if you watch my videos, I apologize for us still doing videos in here right now. But if you haven't seen one recently, this is the cafe in front where we serve all of the usual espresso drinks, chais, multiple really good matchas actually, pastries that we bake in the morning, etc. I'm also finally getting ready to open the roastery in this back room here, where I'll personally be working on recipes for coffee to replace what we have here in the cafe for now, which are already great, so the bar is pretty high, and I'll be replacing them with all single origin coffees and start selling some more limited fun ones online as well. In the meantime, I already sell some of my favorite coffee gear, including these Coffee Check branded Fellow mugs that insulate better than anything I've ever used. Seriously, they're kind of crazy. And various single origin coffees and blends from my favorite local roasters, including one that I made in collaboration with a roastery here down the street while I was trying to get mine up and running. Feel free to come by if you're in the neighborhood, and also check out the things I just mentioned in the link below. Always appreciate your support, and so do the baristas. All right, now the Google Pixel 9 Pro Fold firstly has a long name. Essentially, it seems that Google wanted to try to make it more clear that all of the Pixel lineup is related for whatever marketing reason their focus groups decided. Regardless, it does tell us that the Fold will most likely continue to be launched alongside the Pixel phones going forward, and it gives us a good idea of that refresh cycle. Now, the phone itself feels like a big upgrade from the last one, especially in terms of design. I mean, just look at the bezels on the old one, and these phones seem like they were released much further apart than they actually were. We also have the same jewelry-like design like the rest of the Pixel 9 lineup, which I've mentioned in videos on these phones. I just feel like makes them all feel more refined, and they might be the prettiest series of phones to come out in the last year. The Pixel 9 Pro itself has this matte metal camera section and frame versus shiny metal on the spine and a matte back. And it comes in two colors, black and white. Personally, I'd go for the white. The Pixel 9 Pro Fold is more of a book-esque folding style, even if it's not quite as moleskin notepad-like as the last one was. The ratio is a bit different now, but they're still both a little more squat than the Galaxy Fold 6, for example. Now, this is one of 3 tablet-style folding phones that you can get here in the US. The other 2 are the Galaxy Z Fold 6, which is taller and has a skinnier outer screen, and the OnePlus Open, which is more in line with the Pixel 9 Pro Fold's dimensions. Impressively, the Pixel 9 Pro Fold is less than 3 millimeters thicker than the Pixel 9 Pro, and that makes it one of the thinnest book-like foldables, at least in the US. The Oppo Find N5 that was just released seems to hold that title globally for now. It's also 25 grams lighter than the original and about 36 grams heavier than the Pixel 9 Pro XL. Because it's so thin when opened though, that weight is very distributed and manageable, and it feels good actually. And next, let's talk about that inner display and the benefits of it. We're at the New York Public Library right now because, well, books. But actually right now there's a pretty unique exhibit going on here called the Polanski Exhibition of New York Public Library's Treasures. It's an exhibit of rare artifacts that span over 4,000 years. Now, items are rotated out regularly, but there are things here at times like the only surviving letter from Christopher Columbus announcing his arrival to the Americas to King Ferdinand. Thomas Jefferson's handwritten version of the Declaration of Independence was here at one point. The 1811 Commissioner's Map and Survey of Manhattan Island with the grid that would end up being the plan for New York City while it grew. The original stuffed animals that belonged to the real Christopher Robin that inspired Winnie the Pooh, and a ton more. It's a free exhibit too, and it's just kind of cool to step back in time. All right, while we're among the books, let's talk a bit more about the folding book-like display here. Firstly, it's a lot less short and stout than it was, making it less moleskin-like, and it's a bit more square than the original, which is good and bad. It's firstly a much larger screen now at 8 inches, making it one of the largest foldable display phones out. But for example, if you're watching a 16:9 piece of content on it, it will give you a lot of black area, which might bother some people, but to me, it's still a larger viewing experience than a large phone. Now, because of this more square inner screen, the outer one is basically the same as the Pixel 9 Pro, which is great. I actually find myself using the outer display a lot more than the inner one actually. I tend to use the inner one for when I'm a bit more planted and I want the use of a tablet with more real estate to read content or use websites or multitask even. And multitasking works well, thanks to the way Android in general now handles this with pulling them up from the dock with a tap and hold and letting them go. It's intuitive and it's a lot less friction than the old tap and hold and tap split screen like we used to have to do on other foldables back in the day. In fact, when you put two apps apps on the display, it feels like two phones side by side almost without a hinge in the middle. RIP Surface Duo. Now that inner display is OLED and it looks great. You can even go from 1 to 120 Hz refresh rate for smoother animations and to save power when needed, but the outer display will only go down to 60 Hz from 120. So in theory, we'll save less power than the inner, but also it probably won't use as much because of its size too, so meh. The cameras are great, as you'd expect from a Pixel phone, and you guys can be the judge throughout the video, but there are some things to note about them. Firstly, all of the cameras on paper are less than the half the price Pixel 9 Pros in terms of resolution and even size of the sensors. In practice, you probably won't notice that much as the software is doing a lot of the heavy lifting, but if you pixel peep, you could start to tell in some circumstances. And this is the same complaint that myself and a lot of other reviewers have with folding phone camera setups. The fact that they are the most expensive phones in the series, like this for the Pixel 9 series or maybe even the Z Fold for the S series. But I guess it shouldn't come as a surprise. For camera software things, we have some of the things that we're used to with folding phones now, like dual screen preview and rear camera selfie, which allow you to utilize the outer display to either show someone else what the photo of them looks like, or flip the phone around and use it to take a photo of yourself with the much better rear cameras than the selfie cameras. You can also use it as its own tripod, like other folding phones, which is handy. And it's not the last of the useful software tweaks Google has made on the phone. To keep with my loose theme of books for this book-style foldable, welcome to the bar room at the Beekman Hotel. Firstly, the hotel itself was just named one of the best in the world by Travel + Leisure for 2025. It is fancy. Now the bar room in the hotel sure has a bar in it, but it is anything but just a room. As soon as you enter it, you're greeted by the plush seating and the rows of books all perfectly lit. I highly doubt anyone would dare try to read one in here. And if you look up, there's actually a 9-story atrium that is just mesmerizing. Now the cocktails and food are great, and it's usually impossible to get in on a Friday or Saturday, but today, on a Sunday, no problem whatsoever. All right, let's talk about the non-camera software that we have on the Pixel 9 Pro Fold, starting with the UI itself. The Pixel experience is probably my favorite UI on a phone. It just matches my aesthetic personally, and it's smooth and fast, and it's some nice software add-ons that we've come to expect from Pixel phones now. Things like the Magic Editor to move things or alter images, Magic Eraser to erase things, screen calling to automatically screen unknown callers and get a transcription as they talk, all of which I use a decent amount actually. Plus, we have Audio Eraser to remove parts of audio that it recognizes that's kind of hit or miss. Best Take to swap the faces of people in a photo if you take a bunch in succession. Photo Unblur to unblur photos, etc. Again, I go more in depth with some of them in the Pixel 9 Pro and the Pixel 9 Pro XL real-world test that I'll link below. Now besides that, we also have Gemini now as the main assistant, which I actually like. And I use it regularly for low-risk questions, but I still don't really trust it that much for anything semi-important yet. It just gives weird or wrong info too often. As does every Gen AI assistant right now, frankly, so that's not really on Gemini. I am, however, a little excited about some of the uses that it can do now, or at least how they will improve over time. It can now control other things on the phone, like timers, calendars, etc., in the same breath as asking a question. And I like being able to add a photo or a screenshot to it to get more information about something that I can see quickly and have it do menial things like math for me faster than I can open a calculator to do them myself, which feels really like what AI should be used for in the first place. The things I don't want to do. And here is my battery life for anyone who's curious about that. Keep in mind though that today was a real world test day and not a normal day, so I used my camera way more than you ever would. So here's another day that was not a real world test day so that you have something else to compare it to. And while the battery life is not as good as the Pixel 9 Pro and the Pixel 9 Pro XL, it's not bad, and it varies a decent amount based on using that internal screen more or less. Now, I usually will make it through a very chill day, but not quite from wake to sleep, and if I start using the phone heavily, it doesn't last me till the evening. Something really nice, though, that's happened since the phone came out is that, as per the usual, Google has dropped the price on it, making it a much more appealing purchase. I'll leave a link below to the best price that I've found for anyone interested. Overall, though, it's probably still my favorite folding phone I've used so far, and now that it's a little bit cheaper, it's actually a good deal, too. It's pretty good. My art was not good, but it tastes good.